Order. Zoom meeting. Button. Speech on.
John, you just need to unmute. Sorry, you've muted yourself again.
Now I'm.
You were briefly audible, but yeah, back to square one. If you try it again, perhaps. I can't unmute you from this side.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, goodness. I'm so sorry. I just couldn't get on. Anyway, that's another story. So shall I get started?
Yes. Welcome, John. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't get in for a while. I'm reading from Bulawayo, where there's no power and no water at the moment, which is quite common these days. I'm going to read from my first collection, Spoils of War. I think you need a context there. Most of these poems are written in the late 60s and the 70s. So please just bear that in mind when I read them. Can I get started now? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. This is the book that I'm reading from, Spoils of War. And I'm going to start by reading the first poem in the collection, which is called Our Last Night in Colleen. I thought that I had finished with this theme, but I am haunted still by memories of a time that never quite got started and clearly will not have the grace to die. I think of our last night in Colleen. We sat on boxes in the dining room, polishing off the old man's brandewyn and the 7 hoarded tins of salmon in tomato sauce. The conversation ranged from life to death, the songs from Billy Boy to Blue Suede Shoes, and then the dancing. The old girl, solo, hitched her bra and shrugged off 30 years. Round she goes, round and round. Then up jumps Dad and takes her in his arms, two-stepping the stuffing out of time. Up, down, turn around, pump those elbows, bend those knees. We stand to join the riot when Jilly bursts into tears and runs outside. We all stop then, stop the talk, the singing, dancing, drinking, and the crickets take over, and a nightjar, and a distant tapping drums, and, more distant still, the drone of traffic on the Joburg Road. Then these take over. And then I'd like to read Remember Granny Trot's Mulberry Jam. That was in the days of the old strip road, before the merger, before the quarry started looking like my dad, long before the fighting. I am thinking of a time of syringa-berry battles and the stink of crushed marigolds as we, Fred, Tazwell, my sister Pat, maybe Bob if it was school holidays, untangled our childhood. Round and round the yard we rushed until the landlocked sky shook starlings out of its blue. Before the puff adder killed Joe. Before Mom stopped making confit from watermelon skins. Before George Sibanda, who taught me Sindebele swear words, was put in jail. It was a time of bulldogs and chickens and vegetables from the garden, capsicums, horseradish, pumpkin, and fruit. Our pawpaws were sweeter than sugar. Even our lemons were sweet. Remember Granny Trot's mulberry jam? That was before she started fading down the distance of her colonial eyes. Before we moved on full tar to the house in the village. Before my dad's profile was blasted away. Just before the landmines started to appear. Then Joe. Then the way our St. Joseph lilies stopped making flowers. It could have been the granite sand. It could have been a hot October wind. It could have been the rattle of choppers. It could have been a time for lilies to sicken in the gathering shriek of cicadas. Okay, my next one is called Rhodesian Lullaby. Like shrapnel from an old bomb, we scatter to other lands, delivering reasons. On our elbows and our knees, a season's grass burns. On the backs of our hands, faces and necks, the first traces of skin cancer. Yes, we're Rhodesians. Does it matter? Even our children have learned not to cry for their puppies' graves. The women weep no more for their gardens, and the men sleep less fitfully on their way to Smithland or Salisbury by the sea. A boozy band of rebels, we fought the world and lost. Why should it matter? Rhodesians never die. From our mouths, flat patriotism slide tight as trouser legs, unbending as pride. Stories of war spread like phosphorus to our eyes. In a trickling of pus and blood down cheeks, we shout our lullaby. Our wallets were fat, our bellies fatter. Memories of war slip like envelopes under the doors of our minds. Each one copes in his own way. A defiant slogan on a t-shirt. The old flag printed on a dishcloth. Hush now, it doesn't matter. This one's called Bulawayo, January the 6th, 1979, mid-morning. As the sun has come out at last, and as I have just washed my hair, and as my landlady, using very little pedal, is playing Beethoven's Sonata No. 7, as I want to read some more about Don Juan, as the coral creeper on the veranda is in the very pink of health, and oh my, there goes the puppy pounding a pathway through the Montbreches. As it's such a Saturday, I have decided to relax on the doorstep. The second movement should be largo, but my landlady, using incidentally very little pedal, is playing a lento. When she gets to the rondo, I hope she remembers to poco allegretto e grazioso. My hair is long enough to be seen shining out of the corner of my eye, like leaves, alternate, compound, of the tree wisteria that grows at the bottom of the garden. The weekend peacefulness of a distant lawnmower drones comfortably, with just the loveliest sense of a tickle through my bones. Do you know it's good to be alive? And do you know the yucca that blew down last week is going to survive? And so, down puppy, and so as I scan the pages of not Byron's Don Juan, too much mortality there, too much laughter is the only alternative, not Byron's, though he too dropped faith for experience, but the Mexican shaman of Carlos Castaneda. Scanning these pages, the rondo ends, the tea arrives. Tea, my favorite hallucinogen. More than 100 milligrams per cup of trimethylxanthine. There is something to be said about the taking of tea. Besides, the doorstep is getting hard. Suddenly it's too hot and puppy, get down. My hair is dry. Bugger the dons. There might be mince pies with the tea left over from Christmas. This one's called Thin White Line. You, great-grandfather, colonial volunteer, Ladysmith, Wagon Hill, Spionkop, killed in action, you came home a hero. You, Opa, dispatch rider, Windhoek, Swakopmund, Tsumeb, wounded in the hand, you came home a hero. You, Dad, lorry driver, Tobruk, Alamein, Hellfire Pass, slightly shell-shocked, you came home a hero. You, son, rifleman, Plumtree, Booby, Villa Salazar, confused, you came home a polecat. This one's called Sunday Evening, Colleen Bourne. Yes, I feel the music throbbing through the dark mimosa trees. hectic palpitations, pitching pods in a game with the breeze, and the drone of beetles darting round like model aeroplanes. I am sitting on the granite wall above the laughing drains that gurgle round and down among our village public ways, and you are with the music and the others and their praise. And when you take the high road home, with moonlight in your eye, someone's jacket round your shoulders, someone's fingers on your thigh, when you pass the dark mimosas, you may hear the branches sigh. They are sighing after music that has had a dying fall, in the laughter of hyenas, in the nightjar's creaking call, in a Sunday evening sickness stretched along the granite wall. Okay, this one's called Pretoria Nightscape. There is a collapse this night of the moon. A mild summer stroke has left one cheek sagging. The stars are out early, and soon fingers of smoke from 1,000 briars tweak the bottoms of tight, dry clouds, too small, too young yet for rain. Wave. The smoke waves to the union buildings, and one tall grey-blue spiral obscuring my rhyme caresses the Voortrekker monument in a conspiracy of boerewors. There is a drone of traffic on the Great North Road. The R-piece, fumbling over beer cans and plastic bags, drops a load of music nearer to the bat ears of men in safari suits buying vleis, nearer than the traffic but more distant than the zing-a-zaka-zing of squash boxes. In a stillness of this night, in a harmony of T-bone steak, these patches of melody unite. The moon, my inspiration, is ailing, shrouded in a greasy haze. The music of this night is failing me. Flakes of light filtering through the jacarandas that line the road fall dull as dandruff on my back. This is our experience. Aunties on highly polished verandas, buttering rolls, uncles on well-mown lawns, prodding meat and discussing motor cars, stink of braaivleis withering the stars. And this one's called Durban Nightscape. An after-love calm sifts through the city of Durban. Along Prince Street, fists of wind knead my view into dough, but a gentle seepage of streetlight exposes the bluff, the harbour entrance, the fuel storage tanks, the walls of the playground, the corner of our bed, and you, curled up in body and thought, your hair a wash of gold. The gale-worn sea flops on the shore like a landed fish. Listen to it. On the other side in the docks, steep cranes are busy loading and unloading a ceaseless drift of ships and railway trucks. The sounds are peacefully distant. There is a smell of yeast, a raw, spumous odor of beachfront and bodies after love, a feeling of restfulness that not even the fitful gusts of wind flapping our bedroom curtains can dispel. This one has been widely misunderstood. It's called I and the Black Poet. I have my subject in focus. Now I must focus my poem. It's a memory of crocus bulbs. The memory is dim, but on page 97 of What Flower Is That? There's a picture of a pink one. The petals are opened, not flat like a daisy, or just like a protea, but halfway like me. Now, with care, I must arrange my words so that the gay little flowers pop right out of the ground in earliest spring. Shall they be white or violet or yellow or blue and shining? Shall they be shining? Not bright like stars or dullish like paper, but halfway like spoons. Oh, the light in the pink of this picture is lovely. It half opens me to the sky. Like silver-striped leaves, my arms follow seasons, never cold enough for a typed memory of crocuses. too hot this earth for words to grow into my bulbs. He focuses on Sharpeville and Soweto. And this one's called The Midnight Blooming. Although that night, beyond the pitch of ululating strings, was dim enough to veil the twinkle of a riot squad, although the atmospheric pressure on a square inch of my brain was more than 14.7 pounds, my stanzas, my stanzas, were as light as plastic bucket blue. Although the band that played before had twanged Amandla to a drift of flowers sweetly clenched, and then Awetu wafted thousand perfumes in reply. Although the rain came down in dog bites and the midnight blossoms dripped a crimson song, my stanzas, my stanzas, were as pale as plastic bucket blue. This one's called Looking at a Photograph of an Overweight Girl with an Uncanny Resemblance to Mona Lisa, who died of heat stroke. She is beautiful rather than pretty. Thick waves of hair break over her shoulders, unveiled and fairer, but almost the same length as the woman's without sympathy. There is no landscape of jagged boulders in this background. She almost fills the frame. She was overweight, so they gave her pills to suppress her appetite. Her parting is on the left side, not down the middle like Mona Lisa's. When a heatwave kills a child of 11, I start aging visibly. My mind splashes like piddle against the walls of my skull. I fancy smells like wardrobes with widow's shoes, a trace of ghost sweat, cologne. I notice, oozing from sessions of early afternoon tea, the sad stink of incontinence. Her face is not the glint of the woman's, nothing of the puffy temples, the aquiline nostrils, but there is the same exposure of delicate skin. Her hands too are joined, but left over right. She has not the fine, tight Leonardo mouth, but her looser smile also knows me. Art can be unkind to life. It agitates while it consoles. It is looking at the future which squats on my right shoulder, heavily breathing obscenities in my ear. Coals smolder with less intensity than her look. But the child, her blue eyes are friendly. They watch the past, flapping like a lapel on my left shoulder, and they seem to say, I know I am dead and you are dying, but don't be alarmed. This little girl fell near Loskop Dam. It was a vicious day. I think the tip of her nose was frying. I think she held on with a blistered hand to the tight-fitting world. There are no rocks or boulders in the photograph, no grand perspectives. Yet she collapsed on the side of a mountain, steadily deteriorated at Groblersdal Hospital, and died in Johannesburg. Now she has passed the quick step of life, the slow time of art, the waltz of my pretensions. She has passed the taking of pills, the shampooing of hair. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This one's called On Browsing Through Some British Poems. I must express not what I know, but what I do not know until the poem is written. This is no English lesson on, say, C.H. Sisson. Nothing deliberate here. I am not sifting through a set work for an exam that will be marked in Cambridge, England. This is something like the heartbreak that a tree. It grew elbows with funny bones, just outside the ladies' change room, P.O. Colin Bourne. Once I peeped and saw, I think, a pair of knees, to which I now add nipples and a bounce. I know that we do not belong, wife, child, puppy, sweet peas, to this brown land, nor in Somerset where Sisson lives, but something like a heartbreak that a road, 2 strips of tar that smelt when afternoons grew hot in Collingbourne, of licorice, to which I now add all sorts of sweet remembrances. I know that we are merely visitors in Africa, the blue eyes of our child, the marmalade, the pets, the BBC. And when I went to London to find some British poets shuffling verses for a game of rhyme, I was a visitor. It's something like a heartbreak at a roof, the first hot drops of Bulawayo rain that pound the corrugations of my mind, releasing songs of leaves and earth and tin, to which I add, I understand you well enough, Charles Hubert Sisson, first that you are a man of ability, your poet's tact, to express not what you know, but what you do not know until the poem is written. Right. This one's called Retreat. It's whimsical of me to feel afraid of an English night on a Shropshire farm. The wildest beasts are a Labrador spayed and a dairyman with a shriveled arm. The Friesland cows are safely in their shed. The lapwing's day-long dinner stilled. No owl's eerie screech unnerves, not a mouse is dead. Then why this levitation of my bowels? No AK-47s in this night, no Shona spirit mediums to haunt my settler soul, no airplanes set alight by the screams of butchered friends, and no taunt of Zimbabwe. There are no elephants to nudge down the oaks or to tap a tusk into my groin, no cobras lying aslant my stride, scales glinting in a loop of dusk. Then why do I feel this night too tightly buttoned at my throat? This vault of a room, its elbow-pressing walls too close to me. The television will relieve my gloom. I die for its button and with almost love await the comfort of its flicker. Songs of praise from Romsey Abbey. The ghost of a memory undertakes to stir. It's a term-time Sunday at Milton School. The heat of the day has let go my nose, but lingers on in the quadrangle's pool of tar, and the parched voices of pied crows patrolling Selborne Avenue for spread-eagled frogs. Today I'm on flag duty. It must be lowered at 6 o'clock dead. The bugle boy will keep me company. As the shadows lengthen across the quad, I take my place at the Union Jack, steady the rope, watch for the bugler's nod. He wets his lips. I give a little slack. He checks his watch. He nods. He pitches flats and sharps clear over the roofs of the town. The flag comes creaking slow. Tap-ta-ra, 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 tap-tap-ta-ra. Down, down, down it crumples into the cuddle of my arms. I fold it as the last keen statement, lest ye forget, of the bugle suspends itself like a hammock between past and present. The school hymn is finished. The organ agitates a tremolo. My times are, my spaces are diminished. I am afraid I have nowhere to go. Okay, 2 more. This one's called Winter in Matabeleland, 1987. That's the year our daughter Ruth was born in Bulawayo. The airlock in our hosepipe won't be heard for another season. The spider in our spout, he won't be stirred for another season. The Zanu-Zapu dialogue is dead until what rains? The Somabula flats are tinctured red until what rains? On caps of wind the migrant swallows soar. Will they return? Our soldiers guard the Beira corridor. Will they return? I found a rusty bayonet in the yard, lest we forget. Some 2x4 and half a playing card, lest we forget. We watch our garden dying, flower by flower, perhaps the spring, the water table falling hour by hour, perhaps the spring. There's part of a heart on the cart I found. Does it portend? The roadies rev their Hondas southward bound. Does it portend? Our newborn baby squints her eyes to see. Love, light the fire. Her two-dimensional security. Love, light the fire. And then finally, I'd like to read the eponymous poem, Spoils of War. Sorry, it's a bit long. We'll stop there. It took me all afternoon, in full view of swaggering Frelimo, to dig up that girl-sized stem. What a hullabaloo, I thought, would this create in peacetime? Suppose they invoked the law, Government Notice 14 of 1975. I had no permit, and they'd certainly miss this fatso, though it grows abundantly in Villa Salazar. Adenium obesum enjoys the hot, dry Lowveld. It would flourish in Colleen Bourne, become a talking point at the club. So I knelt beside this hyper bowl and hugged it out of the earth. With its final give I gave, and we tumbled like lovers, till a shout from our camp warned that I was in grave danger. Frelimo were watching. Get in, you tit-face! I took my lute and a spade for digging bunkers, and my weapon, and stumbled for cover. That night we made a sweep of the TTL. Our section was ill prepared. None of us had wanted to carry the big gun. We had to spin for it. I lost. I wished that thing planted like a Sabi star. None of us took bangs. Too dangerous. Besides, we needed the space in our kidney pouches for gin meringues and quarter jacks of Limousin. Case of snakebite. In a clinking of bottles and a clanking of weaponry, we steer our tackies, discussing Aristotle's Poetics. Tragedy should excite fear and pity. Our pity is awakened by undeserved misfortune, and our fear by that of someone just like ourselves. Tinned thoughts these at this time. Shall we squeeze a tear or two? Army life makes rat packs of our minds. The LMG drags me through the bush, its muzzle close to the ground. A sour, smoky stink of terror checks it. I push forward, then flatten in a commotion that splits a bag of raisins in my brain. When the screaming starts, I have a notion. Lying on my back, horizontal rain of tracer bullets just above my nose. A notion that some cattle have been shot. I start feeling pity and fear for those poor bellowing beasts. Surely that is not a human sound. The screams go on all night. Next morning, our section finds their shelter, 15 meters from where we lay. The sight of corpses and their smell, like an abattoir, forces warm pilchards into my throat. Look at that, says Sarge, a Tokarev pistol still in its grease. He pockets it. They take a portable radio, a fistful of rounds, an empty AK magazine, 5 teeth, a penis, a number of ears, and a picture of someone in a green uniform. Sarge tells me to save my tears for the civilians these gooks have slaughtered. But I am not thinking of them, and I cannot explain that I am being purged of my Rhodesianism, that ugly word with its jagged edges opening me. Through a haze of baked beans and chili sauce, I move to the past tense. The going was tough, but at last I had my frilly-petaled, highly protected, succulent shrub buried up to its neck in granite subsoil. Adenium does not transplant well, but this one flourished. You can see it there today. It flowers in September. And if ever you live in our old home, the one in the village, please remember not to overwater my cuddlesome stump. And if you are bothered by the law, tell them that the plant is a spoil of war. There you go. That's enough.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes,
I
Jacques.
can hear. I can.
I'm sorry. I think you missed the introduction. I didn't know that you weren't in the room. But that was a first reading. It's always an adventure to hear you read, and there are always worlds inside worlds that open up. Can we have a hand for John, please? That's not very.
Thank you.
Um,
Did you hear me reading? Because I can see you on the screen, not me.
I heard everything.
Oh, great! I'm glad. Yeah.
We definitely I heard everything as well. Jacques.
Oh, super! Thank you. I'm so glad. Yeah. Well, those are my early poems. I've come a long ways.
Yes, yeah, this is where I hand over. I mean, I'm sure one or two people will have questions, and
Sure, I'll try and answer them.
I'm very keen to hear what it felt like to read those early poems. And I was thinking of what you said of the British poet, was it Charles Cecil?
Sisson.
I hadn't heard of him.
Sisson. Yeah, he's not such a well-known poet. He's part of that the movement group around about Philip Larkin's time.
Yes. And
C.H. Sisson.
I was thinking of how you said, well, how you said what he said, that you write to express what you don't know. And then I was thinking of you reading these poems, which one way you must know very well, because they were written by a younger version of yourself.
Yes.
How does it feel to read them now, and why did you choose to read them tonight, and why do they speak to you now?
I generally don't like to look back at stuff that I've had published. Quite honestly, I've published over 20 books now, and I seldom go back to them unless it's a situation like this where I'm asked to read. But yeah, reading them. One of the things that occurred to me was how my style has changed since then. I write much shorter poems now, and they're much more sort of lyrical. I write sonnets and things like that much more now. Whereas those poems, although they do have meter and rhyme to some extent. That's not so dominant. But yeah, the content. I mean, the time, the sort of historical time, was a very tough time. Yeah, so I could get pretty emotional, but yeah, you don't, of course. You distance yourself from that.
It's yes, it's strange. I don't want it to sort of take over, but it's clear that you're describing the end of an order that was.
Yes.
Iniquitous, and at the same time, there's something almost, it's not nostalgia, but it's a kind of, what is it? I don't know. It's a.
Oh, thank you for saying that, because I don't intend it to be nostalgic at all.
No.
I think it's too sharp for that.
Yes.
But and it's very difficult to capture that kind of ambiguous tone, where you feel that you belong and you don't belong.
Yes.
That kind of that sort of sense that over the course of time, you end up feeling, well, who are you? Are you part of Africa or part of Europe? And you realize that you're actually not part of either of them. You're something else, and you can celebrate that, I think, in a way.
Yes. You belong to
And yeah, and another thing that's happened with me, for instance, here up in Zimbabwe, is that period was a time of a lot of guilt and soul searching and so on. But I've lived here now for more than half of my life, under ZANU-PF, and I feel almost that I've paid my dues living under this government. It's, you know, some kind of a sense that I've stuck it out here, and I'm still teaching. I'm 77 years old now, and I've got a part-time job at a girls' college where I taught many years ago, and I love it and keeps me going. And I just don't have that same feeling of guilt anymore. I think that I've paid for it somehow. Just living here and losing everything. You know, I lost my life pension, all my savings. We battle a bit, yeah, and so I've sort of come to terms with that. So, and now when I read it, I sort of overlay it with the sense that it's over. Those times are over now. So I don't know. That's not a very good answer, Jacques. But
No, I get it.
Mm.
And I get that we belong to poetry. Poetry is our country in a way.
Oh yes, oh yes, yes. I do feel that very much, and I think in my more recent poetry you'll see that a lot. That idea is prevalent now. That I've moved away from the bush, from the landscapes, from the rocks and stones to the words. Quite influenced by people like Wittgenstein and Nietzsche and so on. But yeah, I get a sense that the word is more central now, but I still try and see it as the logos, something substantial, you know, something more substantial than just some squiggles on the page.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Jacques. I really appreciate it.
It's always good to have you.
Isolated here in Bulawayo.
We'll ask you again.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Jacques. Those are
Thank you
very
so
important
much.
questions and answers. And yeah, the next person's hand that I saw raised was Tony Huggett. After that, it's Nkateko, the singer. So, Tony, the floor is yours.
Tony's an ex-pupil of mine, going back a long time. Is he there? Hi, Tony.
Tony, you're not. Let me see if I could. We can't hear you. It looks like you're unmuted, but okay. While we're waiting for Tony, Nkateko, do you want to ask your question?
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, John. That was a lovely reading.
Thank you so much.
So I have a question about the poem that you gave a disclaimer for, saying that it's a controversial one. I'm curious about that disclaimer, if it's a piece that you've had to explain in other contexts. Why do you feel that because there are times where you'll share the poem and then have questions posed regarding that poem to a point where you feel the need to give a disclaimer regarding that specific piece. Is that the case, where you've had to constantly explain that specific piece? I'm curious about the poem because I think immediately when you said it's controversial, I thought, okay, it might potentially have something to do with race. And it did to an extent, but I think it was a beautiful poem. But I'm curious about the disclaimer and the necessity of it.
Can you remind me which poem it was? I can't remember.
The one about a Black poet.
Oh yes, no. The disclaimer there was that it was misread by an American academic who saw it as me being typical, who didn't see the irony in it, or that I was proclaiming, white people write about flowers and black people write about politics, which it seems like that. But it's actually it's a poem about self-mockery. I'm making fun of myself being at a time when there's so much turmoil, political and so on, in the country, that I can spend my time writing a poem about a flower that doesn't even grow in Africa. It's an ironic poem. I'm making fun of myself, but a lot of this guy, I can't remember his name now, he's quite a famous academic, took me to task for being racist in that poem. And I mean, I'm so used to journalists and academics digging through my writing to see what a racist I am, and I've stopped bothering to defend myself anymore. I just say, yes, I'm a racist. I hate the human race. That's the disclaimer. I think his name was Hughes. Can anybody remember that? He wrote a very influential paper on the white people and how they love dams, and because they originally come from the north where there's lots of water, so they try and recreate that experience by building dams all over the place. And he sort of put me into that category, but he apologized to me later on when I pointed out that I was actually making fun of myself in that poem. I don't know if any of you picked that up. That's the trouble with irony. And I'm a satirist, so people just take me literally, and they believe that what I say is what I am, when I mean the opposite. It's a dangerous genre, satire. So, has that helped a bit?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for asking.
Right. John, I hope you can hear me now. It's Tony Huggett here.
Hi, Tony, I can.
Yeah, excellent. Good. I sorted out the sound. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for the heads up to join you this evening. I was overjoyed to get the message. And
I'm glad, Tony.
So that's great. And I appreciated the fact that you carried on and did your reading, and it must be incredibly difficult to entertain an audience when you actually have no face-to-face feedback and no audio feedback, and you've just got to kind of estimate what response you're getting and carry on regardless. It must have been very challenging.
Yes, to be honest, I don't, I'm not happy with this method of doing it, but what else can you do? It's great that we at least can do this. I'd much rather be down in Cape Town reading to a live audience. I'd love to do that, and I have a couple of times.
Absolutely.
But,
and yeah,
I find it difficult. I get very self-conscious. I can't see anybody.
Yeah.
I can see about 3 of you. The rest I can't see. Who's there?
Well,
it is not. It's not. It's not the best way of reading poetry. But anyway, I'm very glad that I've had the opportunity to even go back and for myself. I haven't read from that book for years. So just going back to it again just reminded me. And do you know that book took 12 years to find a publisher?
Wow.
12 years.
Wow.
And I didn't find a publisher. A publisher found me, and that was Douglas Reed Skinner,
Okay.
who had a little publishing company in Cape Town called Carapace, and he published that book, and he also published my first novel, D.G.G. Berry's The Great North Road.
Yeah, which I remember greatly.
He co-published it with a Joburg publisher. So I've got a huge debt of gratitude to Douglas for publishing me, because boy, oh boy, I've been rejected. All the Zimbabwean publishers rejected me. They didn't look at me.
Well, I'm glad you have been published all these times. That's really important.
Yeah. Always with very small publishers who don't, who love poetry and don't expect to make money out of it, because you don't.
Yeah.
Well,
if it's any consolation, your delivery as had always been in my audience, at least, was fantastic, and you make everything really truly emotive. So you know, as difficult as it must have been for you, I think pretty much everybody will agree with me, I'm sure, that it was a really, really great experience for all of us. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much.
And also
Tony.
for the scientist in me, thank you for the trimethyl xanthine reference in tea.
Caffeine, yeah. Yeah.
I hope some other people picked up on it, but I had a very intense chuckle as you said that.
Yeah. Well, one of the sort of ironies of a poem like that is that it was in the middle of a serious civil war, which I don't mention in the poem.
Yeah.
So if you know that, then the poem, it gets an added sort of weight to it, you know. It's a break from being called up. Although I'd left by then, 79. I'd gone overseas and come back again. So yeah, thanks, Tony.
That's a pleasure, John. Great one.
Thank you, Tony.
By the way, next time I'm in Bulawayo, we must still get together for that beer.
For sure. Absolutely. Oops. That's great. All those beers. I love the plural when it comes to booze.
Well, speaking of plural, I'd like to introduce a question myself, be part of the conversation. John, I think what links the short piece that you sent to the poems that you read this evening was a mastery of storytelling in my mind, or something like that, for want of a better way of putting it. And I think part of the power of the poems for me lies in maybe the playfulness, or with details, with imagery, with rhyme, and then you've got this underbelly of unease and despair, even. But like you said, satirical. I definitely heard those poems as satirical poems. So I don't know if you want to say more in response to that, but my question is the new work that you mentioned. You said you have a collection coming out. I don't know if you want to say anything further about that.
Oh, look, what I will say is that example that was Tombstones, that one. You're talking about the one? Yes, that's typical of my style now. It's kind of much, I wouldn't say minimalist. That one is short, but they're generally pretty short poems, and they kind of tend to be, what's the word? Sort of epigrammatic, you know. And I use rhyme and meter to sort of create a sort of a sense of an axiomatic sense in the poems. And that's probably because I've been reading quite a lot of philosophy now that I'm old enough to understand it. And it's kind of influenced the way I write now. So there's, I think it kind of runs through my new book, which is called Flipping Words. There is still some satire there. I can't shrug that off totally. There's so much in the world that sickens me. But the self-righteousness and the hypocrisy and so on. But yeah, so I've moved away from the sort of those early poems, which are very detailed and kind of gritty, to a sort of a smoother, almost Blakean. Not like Blake, of course. I wouldn't dream to be somebody who can recite the Bible off by heart like Blake. But the idea, the paradoxes, you know, Blake says, without contraries, there's no progression. And I'm fascinated by paradox. And I found that philosophers fear paradoxes, and so do scientists, actually. They sort of feel that's kind of kiboshed their research to some extent. They get trapped in paradoxes, but I think poets love paradoxes. I think paradoxes kind of free them somehow. if you see a paradox as a form of friction, and in order to accelerate, you need friction. So I've been fascinated, and Heraclitus too, the pre-Socratic Greek philosopher. We just left with a few fragments of his writings, but they've strongly influenced me, and not in a negative way at all, in a very positive way, in a kind of a sense of, my favorite figure of speech is the synecdoche, where the part represents the whole and the whole represents the part. Like Shakespeare says, all the world's a stage, or Blake says, to see a world in a grain of sand. I love that idea that the tiniest thing is also the biggest thing, and the biggest thing is also the tiniest thing, to put it crudely, because it's a form of harmony. And it seems to be, that's the kind of thing that I'm writing about now, over and over, in a kind of a repetitive way. So if you manage to get hold of my book, it's very hard to distribute from Bulawayo, but you'll see that
Sorry, John. I was just going to ask: can people write to you? How do people get hold of the book? Do they just write to you, or?
Well, I think if you contact the publishers, they would probably post it to you. You'd probably have to pay for postage though. I've got nothing to do with the distribution. It's the publishers who do that.
Okay, who's the publisher?
It's I'll actually give you the details. It's a new publisher called Pigeon Press. Let me just get a detail. They published my memoir, A Colonial Boy, which came out last year. It's just sketches, really. It's not a memoir, and it's here we go. Oh, the publisher's Paul Hubbard, and if you want to write this down, his email address is info. Yes. He might even be in the audience now. So it's info at Hubbard's Tours, HUBBARDSTOURS.com.
Okay.
So Paul's the publisher, and the other thing is, I think he's got an arrangement with Africa Books Collective, which is based in London, and they print on demand. You just Google them, Africa Books Collective.
Okay.
But if you wait for about 8 years, you'll find it in the second-hand sales online. That's where most of my books are now.
Thank you, John. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your interest. I really appreciate it.
Okay. You've got some comments in the chat. I'm not sure if you saw those.
No, I haven't seen anything.
There was a comment from,
I don't know how to. Oh, yeah. Does it say chat?
Yes, you just click on that, and it's. I don't know if you can see there.
Oh, Mike Honnett. Mike was at school with me in the 1960s. Thank you, Mike. And Ingrid de Kock. Wow, she's a great poet. I think we're contemporaries. We've kind of published together a few times. She's a great poet. Thank you, Ingrid. Yes, I'm a pretty good rhymester. I don't know why, but I always was good at rhyming. Yeah. Oh, there's Paul. He's there. I've got his. The email address I've just given you. Paul's put it down there. So you'll contact him and he can get you a copy. There you are. Oh, that's nice. Thank you. So,
Jacques, do you have another question? Your hand raised. Sorry.
No, that's something I could ask for a long time, but no, that was an old hand.
Okay, an old hand. Okay. Thank you very much, John.
Okay.
If we could have another round of applause for John, and then we'll take a break for the, between now and the open mic. Come back at
Okay.
20 to 9, but just another round of applause for John. Thank you, John.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.